Now, in Sub-Saharan Africa, we recorded the highest prevalence of obesity amongst women. I'll start with you. Why do you think that this is the case?
In women? In South Africa? I think that there's a huge, the high protein products can be quite expensive. People see fresh vegetables as difficult to get a hold of and quite expensive. Maize and a lot of the carbohydrates, which are a huge source of calories and of energy, which is not being utilized as effectively, are cheaper. So it's used as a staple to fill up. And I think that's probably the reason. Would you agree with me?
Julia,
and I think also physical activity. There's been research in South Africa to show that 60% of South Africans are not physically active, which means accumulating 30 minutes of activity in a day, which doesn't have to be in one sitting. It can be over a period of time, but people are still not even doing that.
How do we get people to do that? Is it a matter of education?
I think definitely awareness and education, but you can give someone a message, but it's what they do with it. So I think it's giving them attainable goals and just giving suggestions that they can follow. And you know, you always hear the same things, oh, don't take the elevator, take the stairs. But it is just as simple as that. And parking further away from, they say, even the gym type thing. And just increasing the number of steps in one's day.
Well, listening to all the things that you're recommending, is it that we've created a culture of laziness almost?
I think that we've created a culture of disconnection and not understanding their body. And the best results that I have is actually when you have one-on-one consults with them and you actually tie in that's happening with that and that's why you're craving that. And you make the connection with that individual, and then they experiment on themselves, and the results, they won't want to go back to what they previously were doing because the energy levels are so much better, that digestion's better. So it's actually bringing the awareness and the consciousness and the connection back.
I think also another point is safety, where people can't actually go play outside, where the kids can't play outside, or they,
that is a big,
it's just access to facilities where they can be physically active. And most of the poor population, who are mostly affected, don't have access to these things, and then there are the safety issues where they can't just go run outside and play when they like.
Well, that's interesting that South Africa has such a high population of overweight and obese people, and the poverty rate is so high, whereas other countries, they have such a high rate of overweight and obese people because they have more disposable income and they're, buying foods that maybe aren't healthy for them. So on that note, we've spoken about women. Do these same things affect men and children?
Yes, definitely. The prevalence of obesity is much lower in men compared to women, and black women in South Africa are most affected, and the least affected are black men. And that's probably related to levels of physical activity, where they're doing more manual labor. A lot of and if you look at the politicians, they're certainly not spared from obesity at the moment. And children, definitely, the prevalence of obesity has gone up really high, and about 26% of girls are overweight or obese, and that's about 17% of boys. So girls, again, are more affected.
I definitely think that's a target area, like at the schools and the children, and getting the tuck shops on board, getting sports back into schools again, because that seems to have fallen by the wayside a little bit. And getting the school kids active and moving around in South Africa.
And I think getting away from TV, because they've shown that if a kid watched more than 2 hours of TV a day, which is quite easy, their chances of becoming obese are much greater.
Wow.
So
the computers and the TV also makes them much more static.